Yo, good people, what's going on? It's your homie HerbMan, and you back upside the head with another, you guessed it, hot banger boogie. Hey, look, if this is your first time tuning in to the HerbMan show, go ahead and hit that logo right at the bottom of your screen right there and hit that notification bell so that you never ever miss an episode of what we bring to the table, all right? Now go tell somebody to go tell somebody that your boy HerbMan is on. All right, now let's get right down to it. What are we talking about today? We're talking about the conditions of the body, and we're going to kind of go over some Chinese methodologies as far as understanding that and being able to kind of diagnose yourself, because we're all trying to promote self-healing. We think that the future of medicine is no medicine at all, and so this is what we're going to try to continue to teach you guys on this platform. So again, if you're new to this, go tell somebody and hit that notification bell. All right, so in the Chinese methodology, they understand things from a temperament standpoint. And so you got hot and wet, and you got cold and dry. Now for me, hot and wet and cold and dry are diametrical opposites, right? But it's almost the perfect balance, the yin and the yang, of what you should be as far as the constitution of your body. So you should be hot and wet, not hot and dry. If you're hot and dry, that means you got too much heat that is drying out the wet, okay? You should be cold and dry. If you're cold and wet, then like we all know, if you add cold with wet, it freezes up, right? And so that means that you're probably, just to give you an example of a cold and wet issue, maybe an arthritic body, okay? And so stuff like that is what we're gonna try to cover, and I'm gonna try to give you guys some herbs that could help these particular conditions or states of being in your health that will allow you to know a little bit more about how to diagnose these conditions in your body, and also to what to do to help out, to supplement what you need in order to get back to a particular constitution. All right, now so from me personally, from a traditional African medicine standpoint, if you're a tropical individual, you should try to keep your body hot and wet. If you are you're from the polar climate environment, then you should try to keep your body cold and dry. And so that's the kind of way I'm going at it. There may be a lot of doubters out there and a lot of naysayers, but trust me, if you know how to diagnose in a lot of different formats, then there are always going to be ways for you to provide a little bit more accuracy to how to self-heal yourself. So I use all the information. I've studied Chinese, I've studied Indian medicine, I've studied European medicine, as well as African traditional medicine. And I don't just use one or two, but I use all of that knowledge to really help, including medical astrology, another tool that we can use to really pinpoint accuracy, some things, and look at what is missing in the issue from a preventive standpoint, and also too what we can use to treat our present condition, whether they be acute or chronic. All right, so remember hot and wet, remember cold and dry, remember also too it could be hot and dry, it could be cold and wet, okay? And those, to me, those are conditions that you should not be in, and then we got to figure out how to get ourselves back to these particular states of being. All right, so there are herbs. One of the first herbs that we're going to talk about are acrid herbs, okay? And acrid herbs by definition are herbs that promote heating, and irritating herb that causes a feeling of warmth in the mouth or in the skin or in the mucous membrane, okay? And acrid herbs often have antibacterial and blood dispersing effects. It removes coldness from the body, okay? And so if you're feeling cold in the body, if you're feeling like you got a flu, for me, I consider cancer to be a cold disease, okay? C for cold. I consider that to be a cold disease. Inflammation or anything with an ITUS or ITIS at the end of it, any itises, I consider to be a hot situation, too much heat. So if you're inflamed, if you're dealing with any kind of inflammation, then you got too much heat in your body. You're too hot, okay? And it's just like paper, scissors, rock, all right? What is the best method of getting hot down to? This is a temperature. This is a state, all right? So hot can only be brought down by cold. Wet can only be brought down by dry. You understand that? So if you're too hot, then you need to add some cold to your body. All right. If you're too cold, then you need to add some hot to your body. And so Acrid being a heating herb, if you're feeling too cold in your body, then you need Acrid herbs. Herbs like bloodroot, ginger, prickly ash, cayenne pepper. Those are some of the Acrid herbs that you need to do your research in to figure out how to bring heat back into the cold body. Okay. Now moving forward, the second one here we're talking about is febrifuge herbs, which are cooling herbs. All right. And a lot of times these herbs are utilized for lowering the fever. But if you know anything about healing, a lot of times, sometimes you have to induce the fever in your body in order to allow your immune system to fight off the bacteria, especially when we're talking about self-healing here. All right, remember we're talking about self-healing. So if you're going to self-heal, a lot of times when our temperatures go up, it is when our immune system is really trying to eradicate the foreign bacteria that is in our body. All right, now you have herbs that can induce a fever, or your body sometimes goes into that fever to do it on its own. Okay, so you have where you do it anyway, or you may have to induce it in order to ward off the situation that you're dealing with. And when you do that, you're going to need sometimes to have some cooling herbs to lower that fever. Or if you're ever in that fever state, you can use febrifuge herbs for that. Now, the definition is a cooling herb which lowers fever. Okay, so this is like when you have a fever. You know herbs like elderberry, honeysuckle flowers, peppermint, boneset, catnip, chamomile. All of those are going to be herbs to lower a fever. So let's say if I had a cancer patient, I may want to induce the fever in order for the immune system to really galvanize the troops, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, and the Coast Guard, and everybody to come on in and fight this foreign object that is in the breast, that is in the stomach, that is in the intestines, that is in the lungs, whatever it is. I want to call the troops out, right? So I'm going to induce this fever in order for it to happen that way. And so those are the herbs that you want to use to really get the heat up. Now, when you want to get the heat up, then you're going to use Acrid herbs. When you want to cool it back down, then you're going to use herbs like febrifuge. So you got to weigh in and you got to weigh out. This is going to help you deal with the hot and with the cold. If you need to heat up, you're going to get Acrid herbs. If you need to cool down, you're going to get febrifuge herbs. Okay, now we kind of got that understanding. Now let's deal with the wet and the dry. So now we have anhydrotic herbs. Anhydrotic herbs are, when you see that "and" in front of it, then you know it's going to be something that dispels water. Okay, so this herb dries tissues and remove excess water. So if you never heard of anhydrotic herbs, I'll give you the definition. There are herbs that dry tissues and remove excess water. In traditional Chinese medicine, dampness is considered a disease-causing factor. Okay, anhydrotics then are herbs that counteract dampness and drain dampness. They work in two major ways: as an astringent herbs to tighten or condense tissues to squeeze out excess moisture, or like tannins and herbs can do this, or by increasing the elimination of water from the body through the kidneys and bowels with diuretics and aquaretics and all of those types of herbs. Now, some of the herbs that can do this anhydrotic type of action is going to be white oak bark. I know a lot of you have heard of the astringent witch hazel. You got uva ursi out there. You got dandelion leaf. You got green tea. And you also got fuling and juling. Okay. And so understanding what anhydrotic does. So if you have too much moisture in your body, and we're talking about fluid in the lungs, fluid in the brain, fluid wherever you have excess water in your tissues, in your intestinal tract, your gastrointestinal tract, you may need to have anhydrotic herbs that could really dry those tissues up and remove those excess water through your kidneys. So you may think about things like diuretics even. When you're talking about diuretics, then you're going to be talking about juniper berries and things of that nature that could allow it to flow through the kidneys and get out of you. Okay, when you're talking about bowel, then you may need something that will make you go to the bathroom, stuff like senna or cascara sagrada. Okay, those are going to be the herbs that you could do that to try to help out with removing excess water. All right, but now that's water. Now we're talking about mucus or mucilage, and you have herbs that promote increase of mucus, that's giving you mucus or helping your mucous membrane secrete more mucus into these particular parts of your body, especially people dealing with arthritis. And those herbs are going to be things like kelp, marshmallow, licorice root, slippery elm. Okay, those things can give the gastrointestinal tract lining of the stomach a little bit more mucus, so that if you're dealing with leaky gut and things of that nature, it'll help you out on that. All right, so this is the information that you really need to know. One dries up water, one gives you mucus, another one, when we're talking about decreasing mucus or dispelling mucus, then we're talking about mucolytic, okay? Mucolytic herbs, all right? And those are herbs that dissolve mucus, they thin mucus so that it can be removed. Now, what are some of the definitions of mucolytic? I'll get to that as well and give you some of the herbs. Now, mucolytic herbs, as defined, are those that dissolve mucus or an herb that thins mucus so the body can move it out of the body. For instance, herbs can have resins that speed up the secretion of fluids from the mucous membrane, or saponins, all right, which are soap-like compounds that thin mucus. When the mucus is thinner, the cilia, or tiny hairs in the bronchial area, can beat or move the mucus up to the throat so it can be gotten rid of. So basically you're coughing up and out the mucus. I know we've done that before when we have a whole bunch of snot, or when we're coughing up what we call loogies, all right? That is that mucus being coughed up throughout the lungs. Now, according to traditional Chinese medicine, mucolytics dissolve phlegm are useful for a program to help alleviate such conditions as seborrheic dermatitis or dandruff or cradle cap, or for helping to dissolve non-malignant swellings and cysts in the body. Now, some of the herbs that help out for this is lemon, elecampane, pine bark, herb called yerba santa, all right? And you got polygala, all right? And these are just a few herbs, okay, that can help in these conditions. And that's when you have a situation where, again, you're too dry. If you're too dry, you may need to get some mucilage herbs, all right? If you're too wet, you may need to do an anhydrotic and a mucolytic herb that will remove the water and the excess water and the excess mucus, okay? Because remember, you want to stay in perfect balance of hot and wet and cold and dry, not necessarily hot and dry. If you're hot and dry, it's because you got too much heat that's drying out your body, okay? If you're cold and wet, sometimes that, because you don't supposed to be cold and wet, then the one that you have to attack is the cold. So if your body is cold and wet, you need to attack the cold so that you can become hot and wet. If your body is hot and dry, you need to attack the dry so that you can become hot and wet. You see that? So you want to get your body back into perfect balance with the correct oppositions, and not necessarily being where you have a cold and wet state or a hot and dry state, okay? Those are not the right conditions that you want to have your body in. So if you're dealing with a cancerous situation and you got fluid in your body, to me, that let me know that you're cold and wet. Okay, so we need to heat you up, induce the fever. Go ahead and try to get your immune system to knock out all of that bacteria, all of that infection, all of that type of stuff that is getting to you, to allow it to be cold, right? And then we need to, if it's too much mucus, then we need to do things to remove the mucus and the fluid, like anhydrotic and mucolytic herbs, okay? Now, I didn't want to make this video very long, but I did want to make it make sense. And I did want it to involve you guys understanding really how to diagnose yourself, how to put it all together. I have a lot of people asking me, how do you know what you know? How do you begin? I learned from everybody that claimed to be a healer, okay? I learned from everybody that put out information about how to heal yourself, what kind of diets to go on, what kind of medicines to use, what kind of herbs to use. I studied the body systems, and you got to put all of that information together. You really, really have to be a student of the game to really understand all of this information. And then I come up with my own thesis about collectively from all that information, I come up with my own thesis about how we can go forward. And my own thesis is to utilize all information that man has ever put out there, because we've always, since we've been on planet Earth, have tried to live as long as we possibly can. So you need to take it all from every corner of the earth, and you have to put it all in one thing, is that you have to understand the body, you have to understand your condition, and then we have to understand it from an astrological standpoint as well, that we may be missing certain things that will cause us to have deficiencies, not out of the air, but some things are predetermined. And if we can utilize these methods of prevention, then we can prevent some of the things that we're destined to have, and we'll be able to circumvent a lot of these particular diseases and harmful effects of our bad habits as far as diet and as far as just bad habitual things that we're doing, from overworking ourselves, overeating, and all of those types of things. So I hope that this video really helps someone out there. Again, go tell somebody about the video. Continue to support the channel. We thank you guys for everything that you're doing. We're going to be putting more and more herbs on the website at www.leafofvitalessentials.com. It's our online store where you can get your herbs. You can always ask us questions at HerbMan on Twitter, or you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Leaf of Vital Essentials INC, or just go to youtube.com/HerbMan. All right. I love you guys, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And until next time, peace. Yes, sir.